right, welcome to another episode of Talking Grassroots. I'm your host, Ricky Ettridge, and joining me, as always, Ricky Logan. We're getting close to the start of the footy season, a few pracky matches on the weekend. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was not too bad. I checked out a little bit of the pracky match action over the weekend. Saw a couple of blokes taking pracky matches a little too serious, I think. Yeah. But other than that, yeah, it was pretty good.
So I was up in Ballarat over the weekend, and before we left, I was like, I might see if I can sort of find myself a few pracky matches out that way, and couldn't really find anything out towards Ballarat. So I was quite keen on trying to get down and watch some local footy down there, but unfortunately wasn't to be. Now, before we get started, mate, just obviously, footy clubs are really good if, for mates and everything like that. And when people are going through some tough times, they sort of gravitate towards the footy club. In the last week, we had quite a few sad instances within our mateship group with families and stuff like that. So I just thought I'd just check on your mates every now and then, make sure they're going all right. You never know what's we sort of knew what was going on in their lives at that time, but you never know what anyone's going through. So just sort of I thought we'd start this episode off by saying checking in your mates, and with footy coming around. My personal experience, I reckon footy clubs are the best place to be when you're sort of going through some tough times. But, mate, we'll get stuck into it.
Just on that one then. If you are involved in a footy club that is looking to sort of, help in those areas of mental health and all that, outside the locker room is where organisation that can come down to a club and help your players through some of that stuff and guidance and all that sort of thing, and they do some great work. So shout out outside the locker room. We've spoke to them on a previous podcast we've had, and they're doing some great stuff. Yeah,
Todd and the team do a fantastic job at outside the locker room. What sort of started off as a sort of taboo subject, I sort of guess in footy worlds, I guess back probably 10 years ago, is now sort of front of mind for a lot of clubs. And it is great to see what outside the locker room doing. There's a few others getting around that do the same thing. And I do highly recommend that if your club wants to have one of those, like a forum, I think they're sort of called at your club, get in contact with, outside the locker room and the other companies that do it, and you'd be quite amazed with just what you can learn and everything like that. So we're going to kick off, mate. During about 2 weeks ago now, not last week, sorry, some big news coming out of country and metropolitan footy, with interleague back on the agenda, and two of Victoria's biggest local footy comps are going to go head-to-head after they announce a 2-year interleague agreement. So two of Victorian local footy's biggest competitors go head-to-head later this year. The Bendigo Football League and the Victoria Amateur Football Association have announced a 2-year partnership, which will see the competitions face off in an interleague game. The VAFA will host the 2024 game at Alstonwick Park on July 6th, with players from Premier B down to Division 3 men's eligible to be selected, and Bendigo will host the return match in 2025. Officials also confirmed that the day would include a VAFA Under-19 showcase, featuring the best underage players in the VAFA, with teams divided into North and South. Now, I don't know about you, mate, but I absolutely love the concept of interleague. I do think, unfortunately, sometimes it can be sort of not an even playing field with what team sort of plays what. But I reckon VAFA and Bendigo is going to be an absolute cracker. And what I do enjoy about this is it's from Premier B all the way down to the bottom division of 3.
Yeah, it looks like they've got they're going to have a fair group to select from, which is good to see. And there's talented players getting around in all those divisions. So it'd be good to see some of those guys get a chance, and it's not just those Premier Division players that are the only ones getting a look in. It's good that they've made a 2-year agreement, so we know that, they're going to play one down here in Alstonwick and then the return match in Bendigo. I never like it when the interleague has this 1 year. 1 year it's getting played against somebody, then it doesn't get played for a couple of years, and then, then they're playing somebody else. So it's good that they've already agreed to 2 matches, which is going to make it a bit more interesting, and I reckon the return trip will be a good one for the boys to get out to Bendigo. I'm
pretty sure sort of the old structure that they used at one point was sort of they separated the leagues into sort of like a ranking system. So I'll use, say Eastern, for example, was 1, MPNFL was 2, Essendon was 3, and I go Geelong was 4th. The top 2 leagues would play against each other. The 3rd and 4th league would play against each other. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. So it was actually ranked across the board, which I think is probably a fair way of doing it. But I also do quite enjoy seeing leagues go, let's go head to head. 2 years in a row. I wouldn't. Tell you what, I wouldn't mind seeing it sort of a 3-year thing, and the winner at the end of the 3rd year sort of gets the a bigger trophy, being sort of winning the series, as you will. I remember back, when I was youngest, interleague was a really big thing, especially in junior footy. In senior footy, it sort of dropped off a little bit from my eye. I think that's purely based on the fact that we were sort of playing in a bottom division club, and normally when leagues are putting together teams, they sort of only look at that top division. They're 10 clubs at that top division, that's all they can play. So to see here that they're going to have players from top to the bottom division is fantastic. I am a little bit weary of how many blokes are actually going to get picked up from underneath, probably Premier C. But as you know, we've seen a lot of Division 3 and Division 2 VAFA last year, and there are some players in there that would be very, very handy in this interleague team.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, there's talented players across all those divisions, just because they're, they might have ties to a certain team because they went to that school or whatever, and that's the division they play in. Doesn't mean they're not capable of pushing up to a Premier Division team. So it gives them a good chance. And interleague is always one of those things to sort of test yourself against a completely different league. And, country footy is known for a sort of different, more physical type of game compared to the VAFA. So it'd be good to see those two interleague teams go at it. And further down the article, it also, the VAFA has taken a team over to Perth to play against Perth Football League later in the year. So
that would be the Premier. That'll be the Premier A will do that. So that's a sort of a standard thing that they've always done. I do sort of feel like with interleague, I honestly thought the COVID years was actually going to probably kill off interleague, just because obviously all clubs and leagues struggled throughout that period. There was obviously no interleague played 2020, 2021. And I was seriously thinking that leagues and clubs are just going to go, nah, the funds aren't there to put together interleague teams and all that type of stuff. But from the sounds of it, it's back. I know Southern have got their interleague side. They've signed the Cheltenham Premiership winning coach from last year as their interleague coach. I'm pretty sure there's quite a few other leagues I know about. I just can't think off the top of my head about all these other clubs. But I think the interleague is also good for the break in the season for the players. Like most clubs every year will pencil in the Queen's birthday weekend as their bye and the interleague bye. I know that when we're playing, you always sort of pencil them weekends. Okay, that's weekend. Week off for the boys. I know that some leagues don't take the break in the leagues, but like sort of those low division grades won't take that break. And that just sort of goes back to the point they're only really picking top division players.
It's an interesting one because the AFL itself used to have a pretty good, state rivalry games and stuff, and then that's kind of gone to the wayside, and that's a dead concept for many years now, and interleague looked to be sort of following suit with that. That there wasn't as much interest when you're getting guys that are getting paid $1,000 a game to play for your club and stuff like that. Then you wouldn't want them going out playing in this interleague game that's sort of meaningless and not being able to back up and play finals for your club. So I do see the other side to it, but it is something that is great to see. I'd love to see what the Supers has in the carnival type system that's at the end of the year, where you have Vic Country, Vic Metro representing against other states, from over 35s all the way up to over 55s. I'd love to see something like that happen at a senior level. That's not your TAC Cup type. Age groups. There's plenty of talent that have never made it to the AFL that I'd love to see getting played at in a state round robin type competition. I reckon that'd be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it actually would be pretty cool to see. So sort of get the best players from around the state all together, or the metropolitan countries all together. We'll move on now, mate. So, a big announcement coming out of Avondale Heights about a week and a bit ago. Before I get into this, probably not next week, the week after on the podcast, we'll probably run through the biggest recruits of the upcoming local season, just being the fact that we're only about a week and a half, 2 weeks out from the start of the season. So, in about 2 weeks' time, we'll sit down, we'll sort of go through the best recruits and who we're looking forward to see what they do. But Avondale Heights have locked in Jack Zeeble for 2024. The recent retired North Melbourne champion will play for Avondale Heights in an Essendon District Football League blockbuster against Aberfeldy on Anzac Day. He will play under the guidance of father-in-law Paddy Byrne, who will return to coach the Big White V this year in the game at Canning Reserve. Zeeble could also play alongside his younger brother Bailey, who was an emerging midfielder at the club, while his brother-in-law Connor Byrne has returned. This is a really exciting opportunity for the club, Paddy said. Hopefully, we might be able to get a few more out of him in the second half of the season, but it will all depend on his Richmond commitments. The Tiger assistant coaching role is his first priority and will depend on the fixture. Love it. Love the fact that recently retired AFL players going back for a one-off game at a club that obviously has family ties to, especially in the Essendon District. He's only 32, so he's not exactly the oldest bloke on the park, and I honestly think he probably could have got another year or two at AFL level. So to get an AFL level player into a club, it's going to be pretty exciting for them.
Yeah, to be honest, when I read that he's 32, hold on. When all the commentators were talking about him last year, you would have sworn he was close to 40. He's definitely was still able to play, and yeah, having the family ties to the club makes it all the more better for him, and it's good for the club to get a player of his ilk down that has just stepped straight out of the system and is still involved in the AFL system as an assistant coach. And I'll tell you what, it'll be a good week on the track leading up to Anzac Day for the boys there with Zeeble around. Yeah,
absolutely. And taking Aberfeldy, a powerhouse of the EDFL, that's going to be an absolute cracking contest. And Anzac Day has definitely now become sort of a fixture on the local footy calendar. It used to sort of, even back in before the AFL sort of took on the the Collingwood Essendon fixture, it was sort of a no sport game, and then sort of Essendon and Collingwood got the game up and going, and you had 100,000 at the MCG the first time. And local footy was always sort of, unless it was played on a Saturday, unless Anzac Day fell on a Saturday, Anzac Day was also sort of a no touch, don't do it, where I think a lot of clubs and a lot of leagues are seeing the benefit in holding these fixtures. And like I think it was 2022, I went down and done a game, Braybrook game on Anzac Day, and the crowd was packed. There was more people there than you'd normally see at a local game of footy, and it brings out everybody. And I enjoy the fact that leagues aren't overpopulating their fixture on that day. They're sort of keeping it to sort of one or two, and I think it's great.
Yeah, I love it. Not everyone supports Carlton and Collingwood and Essendon, so not everyone cares about an Anzac Day game, but an Anzac Day clash is always a great event to watch and stuff, and then getting to play at a local level and play with those same sort of, things behind it, like the getting to honour the Anzac heroes and getting to have the minute silence and, the playing of the last post and all that stuff. It sort of gets the spine tingling and getting to play in those. And, most local footy that round of the weekend will sort of do it as an Anzac Day tribute and stuff, but actually getting to play on Anzac Day is fantastic. And like you said, you make a whole big day of it, get a big crowd down, and it's a one to mark on the calendar every year, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, and the clubs do the last post, they do the minute silence, they do a really, really good job of honouring the Anzacs and putting on a good game of footy as well. And I know that a few clubs in recent years have done Anzac Anzac Day themed jumpers for whether or not they're playing on Anzac Day or they're playing sort of the Anzac round. And like with that, it's just like how Easter probably for the last maybe 5 or 6 years, leagues have really started to build up games on Good Friday and Easter Saturday and Easter Sunday, where generally most of the time the season will start sort of after Easter, or you might get that sort of one game, get the Easter break and then back into it. But I love seeing clubs, do Good Friday footy now, and I think the local footy jumped on Good Friday footy before the AFL even did.
Yeah, Good Friday is another one that I love. Any opportunity to have a showcase game, like especially like you said, you don't overpopulate. You don't make every team play on Good Friday, but you have a couple showcase games that as a player, opposition player or something, you can then get down and watch some footy that you're always clashing with. You don't get to always see those games and stuff. So it's good when they get to have those showcase ones, and a couple clubs do it really well. And Good Friday, it's a religious holiday. Not everyone's religious, so not everyone cares about those sides of things. And so it's good to see that footy's getting played on those days as well.
Yeah, and just from a punter side of things, you can sit down and watch footy on that day. Like I know last year I was away for that week before Easter, got home Good Friday fairly early. I think the Kangaroos Doggies game didn't start till about 5 o'clock. You know how much I enjoy sitting in the back of my house watching footy, having a beer. Well, I was at the back. I was like, no footy on. Local footy chucked on the now defunct Koch TV, and there was 2 or 3 Good Friday games that I could sit there and watch. And it was actually really nice to be able to sit back and watch local footy, and you could see the crowds. The crowds there were quite big compared to sort of normal. And as you said, opposition players can get down, and most of the time, well, not most of the time, pretty much every single time a club hosts these days, they put on a big event for their, whether it be their past players or their sponsors or something like that, which is fantastic.
Yeah, most people, they got the 4-day weekend at a minimum. If you're working with the unions, you've probably got an 8-day weekend or something. So it's it's good. You get to play Friday, Friday day or Friday night, and then still have 3 days off afterwards if you're a player. You can still go to the footy Friday, watch the game, and then you go away for the rest of the weekend or whatever. So, it's good. It gets a game played without messing up the fixture too much, because Easter, when there was no games getting played, it can sort of either make the season start earlier and then you have play 2 games and then you've got to bye for Easter 2 games in, where I don't like it to having a bye until sort of at least 6, 7, 8 games into a season. I don't like those play 2 and then have a week off. I
think the leagues have done a really good job now too, where in the past it was sort of they'd have their fixture set up and then all of a sudden they'd sort of pull a game from somewhere. For example, we played Good Friday one year. 2021, I believe it was. We played Good Friday, and that was the week before round 1, so round 0, for example. But it ended up being our round 15 game, and obviously with COVID coming through that time, that game was null and void. But now the leagues, especially Southern, after that incident, will now sort of make it. It has to sort of be between a round 1 to round 4 game. So if you play Good Friday, you're not getting a bye in round 15. You're copying it in that next probably month period, which I think it's better for the competition and it's better for the players as well. You're not having to worry about 3 weeks out from finals we get a bye because of a game 6 months ago.
Yeah, maybe we're the innovators of open round.
Yeah, well, didn't save me a goal kicking award, mate. So anyway, so we'll move on to an article that got released this morning, talking on Monday, and AFL is launching a new experience hub for female umpires. In a bid to attract more female umpires to the game, the AFL has launched a new initiative. And so this article is written by Braden May, said on the 4th of March. Goes on to say the AFL has unveiled a new initiative. I don't know why that word confused me. As it seems to have women, as it aims to have women make up at least 40% of all accredited umpires by 2030. Starting on Monday night, March 4th, the game's governing body has launched the new experience hubs to connect female umpires across Victoria. The program will include 3 workshops, 2 face-to-face and 1 online session at 7 different locations, including Ballarat, Casey, Croydon, Druin, Geelong, Shepparton and Yarraville. Participants will be involved in workshops focusing on topics such as teamwork, communication and decision-making. At each hub, those involved will be guided by facilitators who have umpiring involvement right throughout the elite pathways. AFL Executive General Manager of Game Development Rob Old said the hubs were a key in attracting more women and girls into umpiring. The Experience Hubs form an important initiative to help connect women and girls umpires within their region, allowing them to exchange stories, create friendships and provide the opportunity for them to hear and learn from top umpires in the state, he said. AFLW umpiring workshop facilitator Melissa Sandbrook said the hubs will create a supportive environment for women and girls to come and learn more about umpiring. The creation and trials of the umpire experience hubs make a crucial step forward in our ongoing efforts to develop more gender diversity within the umpiring at all levels. Where once it may have been a little daunting for a woman to take the first step or next step in their umpiring, they can now come along to those experience hubs that are run by women for women and girls with their friends and other like-minded people. AFL Hall of Famer and National Women and Girls Football Lead Debbie Lee said all departments within the game development at the AFL understood the importance of driving the outcomes attached to Women and Girls Action Plan. When we talk about priorities in the AFL, achieving our vision within the plan is vital for the future of Australian footy, and our team leading the way have done a terrific job in pulling together all the pieces for each experience hub, she said. If you're interested, you head to playafl.com for more information. I think it's a great initiative. I'm not too sure. That article doesn't really... It sort of explains what it is, but I don't really quite understand exactly what it is. But I think it's fantastic that they're trying to not only get more umpires, but sort of get more females involved in the game of footy at umpiring level.
Yeah, for sure. Anything that's going to help up the involvement with umpires in general is a good thing. I think for quite a while now, umpires has been probably something that has need to be addressed, and the lack of experienced umpires. It's good that some of the best umpiring has been done by some females. I know probably the best goal umpire in the business is female. Except David.
David Rowan's
pretty bloody good. He's pretty entertaining. But yeah, it's a good initiative. It's good that they're finally doing some things like this to get some more involvement in the umpiring side of things. They're always talking about increasing player participation with women and stuff. So it's good that the umpiring side of things is catching up to that, because without umpires, the game doesn't get played at all. So, there's plenty of girls getting out there at local level, giving it a crack. So it's good that they've got, some way of trying to bridge that gap from local level to then the professional levels.
I think it's, as you said, umpires have always sort of been an issue in getting numbers for umpires for a long time. I mean, you think about how much footy is played on a weekend, and probably most of those, every senior game will probably need at least 3 field umpires, 2 goals, 2 boundaries. I know that a lot of leagues will have sort of their reserves will have just club umpires, which when you got leagues like Mornington Peninsula, who is top 3 league in the state, that have club umpires for reserves. I think it sort of goes to show the lack of numbers of umpires across the board.
Even some of the VAFA, like they don't have, they'll have a league field umpires, but they don't have league goal umpires or boundary umpires for senior games. So they'd be club provided. Each club's got to provide 1 goal umpire, 1 boundary umpire. So it's, and that's at senior level. So it just shows how hard it is to get the numbers up to have enough people to umpire all these games. Yeah,
and when you would count how many games of footy are on a Saturday every week in Victoria, you wouldn't even come close to having enough umpires to fill all those games at senior level, let alone across the board at reserves, under 18s, thirds, under 16s, under 18s with the comps that play them on a Saturday. And then you add into that junior footy on a Sunday. Like, you normally sort of get the younger umpires doing the junior footy. But I think one of the biggest things for most umpires, people wanting to get into umpiring, would be probably the abuse that they're probably concerned they're going to cop from players, other side of the fence. I'm a big believer that if you're a player, I can sort of forgive getting a little bit heated in the moment and sort of ask, or sort of not overstepping the line, but sort of asking, hey, like, that's a bad decision, or what about this, or something like that. But when it sort of comes from over the fence at senior level, and particularly over the fence from parents at junior level, I think that needs to sort of be addressed heavily. And also, when umpires are coming off the field, you sort of see blokes get stuck, or to say blokes, but you see supporters get stuck into umpires. That's something that sort of needs to be taken care of, and just sort of needs to have a stop across the board. And I'm a firm believer that if you abuse an umpire and you're sort of on the other side of the fence, and it gets reported, you should just not be allowed to attend local footy for a period of time, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger issue than probably what anyone thinks it is, because there's probably a lot of cases that go unnoticed and don't go get reported because, there's too many people laughing along with it at the time, and it doesn't get picked up. But there is a big issue with that, and I think it's something that needs to continually be vocalised and addressed.
And I do think leagues do a fantastic job of addressing issues that occur when they know about them. As you said, there are times where nothing sort of gets said because, you're sitting with the boys, you're having a beer, someone will yell or something, and you first goes, that's pretty funny. And then, it can take 10 minutes to be like, oh, hold on, that probably shouldn't have been said, or, well, you need to sort of pull it in. But the unfortunate thing is you'll have the bloke that you'll yell at, you'll have a bloke sitting there going, come on, you shouldn't be saying that. But then you'll have 4 or 5 blokes that go, nah, it's all good, it's no issue. They're not the ones saying it, but they're just going, oh, it's just funny. You need the one person yelling, the 5, 6 people, they're going, hey, come on, mate, let's pull it in. We had, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but we had a situation a couple of years ago at the club we were involved at where something was said, and it was said to a female umpire, and the league and the club took very, very swift action over that in the space of 2 days, I think, was taken care of.
Yeah, it wasn't tolerated at all. It was,
and to be it wasn't good what the bloke said, but it was also sort of some people would look at it sort of on the lesser spectrum of things that can be said.
Yeah, definitely. It was not malicious in any way, but there's it seems every couple of weeks during a footy season there's reports of some kind of umpire abuse or something going on, and like when it's happening at a junior level a lot, that's when it's that, like you said, players out there playing, and they might say some that's not it's abusive, but it's not malicious in its intent. It's just think you've got the a bad rub of the green at the time or whatever, so you argue with the decision or whatever it is. But when it's parents and supporters of junior teams abusing umpires, abusing other players from opposition teams and stuff like that, that's sort of something that's really got to be taken quite serious, because you're setting the examples for these kids for the rest of their lives. The kids need to be brought up and they need to be picked up and boosted up, and the kids trying to learn to umpire. Like, not every kid is going to be the best footballer and going to be able to kick the footy and so there's going to be kids that will go, oh, I might go umpire, but they're sort of looked down upon as like they don't, you're not good enough to play football, so that's why you had to umpire. It's kind of a thing that's sort of looked down on. But like I said, the game doesn't get played without good umpires, and that's the key. Like, we want good umpires coming through. We don't want kids and girls and guys getting pushed down and not taking it any further and being any good at it. So, yeah, hopefully things like this, when they can do these kind of programs from the professional level and help build up their skills and stuff, would be good. And it'd be good to see some of the interpretations of rules get a little bit more black and white in their interpretations over the next couple of years. I know a lot of people complain about the rules and we're forever changing rules and all this stuff, but I think we're leaving too much grey area in rules, and that's where a lot of the confusion happens. So I think the AFL really needs to look at themselves with that kind of thing, because they're only making it worse for the umpires out there.
I do think the AFL, it probably leaned too far to extreme at the beginning with, but the scent rule that the AFL brought in hindsight, you look at it, and it's actually a good rule, because you do see a lot of stuff filter through from the professional. The kids and that will see what professionals are doing, and it filters down through to the junior footy. So if you're seeing your favourite player get up in an umpire's face and throwing their arms around and arguing back to him, that's going to filter down. Where the dissent, as I said, I think it sort of leaned a little too far one way, where it was a little bit like, come on, that's a bit like, Blake just going like, putting his hands out a little bit. But
Shrug
I think
at the shoulders and it's 50 metres.
But I think what they were trying to achieve was actually would have been very beneficial for local level. And you mentioned about, you need umpires. They might not have been the best footy player. When we were at Nations Footy Cup last weekend, we had a boundary umpire that come around in front of us, and you've made a bit of a quip to him, like, you're right in front of the camera, better make this one good. And he's like, I need to. And he's tossed it in. He's just like, I'm happy with that. And it's been a 30K day so far. And I just sort of sat there and went, well, I don't care how good you threw in there. If you can throw the ball like that after running 30Ks, like that's in that heat, and that's a fair effort. And that's one thing I don't think a lot of people think about. As footy players, as we know, when you're tired, your mind does start to sort of drop. And a lot of things that clubs do at all levels is they try to tire blokes out and then make their decision making while they're tired. Umpires are exactly the same thing. They're getting tired. Their decision making the last quarter might go a little bit left or right because they are so tired and they're missing things. And I think a player can make 10 mistakes a game, and it's whatever. An umpire makes one mistake and the world's on fire.
Yeah, and I think that's the best point there, right there, is that if you're a player, how many times do you miss a kick to miss a mark or whatever during a game?
Kick it behind.
Yeah. We've played alongside plenty of players that, couldn't hit the side of a barn door, but they are then abusing an umpire for not giving them a free kick they think they deserve at one point. Because they've clearly pushed a bloke in the back and they get a free kick paid against them or whatever it is. But, it's like as players you make mistakes. Umpires are going to make mistakes. They're not going to see everything, especially at a local level, when a lot of the time there might be only one field controlling field umpire. The other umpires, that far away from the play that they can't have any impact and make any involvement in the decision that's been paid. Also players, good defensive players, learn the tricks of the trade to try and get away with things, getting away with pulling at a jumper and stuff that, you as a forward, he's fucking holding me all day, umpire, give me a free kick, give me something. But, crafty defenders will get away with a lot because they sort of learn how to work around the rules and get away with those things.
And the thing is, right, is the umpire is not always wrong. There was times like that I've filmed games for our club, and a bloke would be like, the umpire should have paid this, and I'm filming it, and I just look at him and go, what are you talking about? Oh, he got me high. He's like, he didn't get you high at all. It was like, he got you sort of on the shot. No, he got me high and abused, and it's just like, just play the game. You didn't get hit high, or when you're filming, you film from a certain angle, and you do see, this angle you're on, infringement happen, but then you look at the umpire and you go, the umpire has absolutely no chance of seeing that arm over the shoulder with how many blokes are in his way and the angle he is. But I think it's great that the AFL are taking initiative to try and get more women involved in umpiring and in footy in general. And I think the AFL have done really well in probably the last maybe 5-10 years of trying to really bring in women into the sport. AFLW, I do think they've got a lot to. They've dropped the ball on that a little bit with shorting seasons and stuff like that, and obviously there's reasons that the general public aren't privy to as to why that is, and that's just how it works. But we'll cover one more thing today, mate. And today, Carlton Draft have announced their first 2 players of the 2024 Carlton Draft. So this is where the beer company, the Carlton Draft, will get clubs to sort of write in and express interest of wanting to try and get a gun player to their club for a game. And Trent Cotchin and Isaac Smith are set to headline the 2024 draft class for the Carlton Draft.
Yeah, it's a couple of decent gets for the Carlton Draft. When you're sort of comparing, last year you had Nathan Buckley playing a game who's, hasn't put on the boots in a fair while, and now you got 2 blokes that had just finished AFL seasons last year coming to play for a local club. It'll be a huge boost for whichever club that gets them to play along. So yeah, it'd be good to see who else puts their hand up for this local the Carlton Draft local footy initiative, and I'd be keen to see what clubs actually end up with those guys pulling on the jumper for them.
And I think Carlton Draft and Fox Footy, I'm pretty sure it's Fox Footy that sort of cover this as well, do a good job of actually covering the day on the day. They just don't, and Jonathan Brown obviously I think is sort of like the leader of this. They don't just sort of sit there and go, here's our 7 clubs that we're going to get players, pick your player, wipe your hands, okay, you do it. They send down camera crews, they get the games filmed, they send people into the rooms before and after the games to get some content. And I think, it's good for local footy, and I do quite enjoy the sort of, they sort of pick the more struggling clubs, as you will. Yeah,
a club that's sitting on the top of a Premier Division probably doesn't need the help of a one-off player, but some of these struggling clubs that are struggling to get crowds and stuff like that, it's a great thing if they get a AFL player down there. There's somebody that they'd probably could never afford in a million years to get down to play for their club, and it seems like it's only sort of got bigger and bigger each year. With this year now, the draft will take place at the Crown, so they'll have the fans that'll be down there get an opportunity to attend the draft as well. So, there should be plenty of supporters from the teams that get selected to then be able to partake in the draft will be pretty good. And I wonder if you were a club getting to pick, who are you taking first out of Cochin and Zach Smith?
It's a tough one. Because there's 2 sides to it. If you want to take probably the bloke that's probably still got the better form, left in and I reckon actually probably have more freedom at local footy, you're probably taking Isaac Smith. But I feel like Trent Cotchin's probably going to pull in a bigger crowd because we all know how nuffy Richmond supporters are. And we've got a Richmond supporter mate, one of my best mates, and I can guarantee if Trent Cotchin was rocking up within an hour at local footy, you guarantee he'd be down there driving to go watch Trent Cotchin play up close and personal. So,
I think
I wouldn't complain about either at my club.
Yeah, you wouldn't complain about either, but I think Isaac Smith probably seems like the bigger character.
Yeah, that's sort of and sort of that wing role. Cotchin's more like an in and under midfielder with the wingers, and at local footy can sort of run free and. Like the kick, what did he kick, like 5 or 6 in bloody Granny 2 years ago? Like he's you'd put it, mate. He'd be plucking himself in the goal square and just running around trying to kick snags from anywhere, I reckon. And I think Cotchin's probably his last few years at AFL level. I reckon he was one of those players that people love to hate. Yeah.
So unfortunately, I think if he ended up playing for your club, there'd be a fair few of the nuffies from the other side of the fence that would be just wanting to get down and hate on the bloke. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And
I feel like I reckon fun. No matter who you get, you're going to cop that. Because every team has a reason to hate a certain person. But I love this Carlton Draft. Their 3rd year doing it. I think it's going to be good, and I look forward to seeing who else we get this year. So before we wrap this one up, Mark, one more thing I just want to spring on you. Just give it a quick thought. Coming into the 2024 season, give me one or two clubs or three or four clubs across Victoria that you've seen, about, that you're looking forward to seeing how they go in 2024.
Number one is the Hawthorn Hawks in the VAFA that I filmed a fair few games for last year. They made it to a granny. Unfortunately, we're outclassed in that granny, but have still gone up a division. So they're one that I'm pretty keen to see if they've been able to maintain their whole list and, maybe add some talent to that as well. So they were quite a talented team, and I thought they had the makings to go all the way last season. So, I'm pretty keen to see them, and I'm pretty keen to see how Div 1 Southern shapes up with, Cranny have picked up a couple new players and stuff after falling short in the grand final. Cheltenham finally winning a flag after a while. I'm pretty keen to see how those two teams back up this year. I know a couple of other teams in the top division of Southern. Southern's always going to have a place in my heart for, it's a league that I've played in for 15 years. So, it'd be interesting to see how, like Springy, how they are able to if they're able to bounce back up to near the top, and Cranny. We live in Cranny, so I'm always going to have one eye on them and see how they're going. Yeah,
so I'm going to be a little bit selfish here, just purely based on because these are the clubs that I sort of do work for. But I'm looking forward. I'm keen to see how East Keilor do this year. They've been thereabouts around the finals the last couple of years, going on good runs and then drop off. They've got a very, very strong list and good coaching. I'm hoping to see them sort of push into the top four of the EDFL finals and sort of take on the Keilors and the Aberfeldies and the Strathmores out there. Mitcham Footy Club in the Eastern Division 1, they won the grand final last year, but due to restructure didn't go up. I'm looking forward to seeing how them and South Belgrave go and which one of them, if it is one of those two, can Mitcham do the back-to-back and get themselves up to the Premier Division. And same as you, the Hawthorn, the Amos, them going up a division. I'm intrigued to see how they go. I think they should be. I reckon they were a very, very good outfit last year. And obviously, as I said, the Southern Division 1, I'm pretty keen on seeing that. I'm actually quite keen to see how EDS go in Mornington. The fact they've been down second year down Division 2, they've signed Pendlebury as their coach, and their new rooms are getting built. And there's all talk that this year's the year they want to really get themselves back up. And then obviously all the clubs that have sort of switched leagues this year. You've got the Rams, you've got Howard moving back to Southern. These teams that have, the Broadford, I'm pretty sure, have switched. I'm looking forward to seeing how these clubs go in their new leagues.
Yeah, that's going to be some interesting ones, especially the VAFA teams that have gone out to different leagues. Keen to see how they handle the different league. And then MPNFL to see if, Dramana and that can stay up near the top and go again. That'll be interesting to see as well. Yeah,
if Dramana can seem to go back-to-back, it'll be massive because it doesn't happen very often anymore around the state at all, let alone in competitions like that. And then obviously, again, from Selfish, Blackburn, Barwon Heads, Melton South, who else we got? All those clubs I'm keen to see. I'm also keen to see how Kooyurup go. This year we're not filming games for them, but there was times last year I watched them where they looked like they had something special and they sort of finished towards the bottom. But, those clubs that are sort of mid-table that have been striving for a couple of years, I'm looking forward to seeing how they go. And, mate, we're only probably, I think we're about 3 weeks away from a couple of comps kicking off. So it's going to be pretty exciting. So next week we might take the week off. Not really 100% sure yet. Obviously, you're back from Queensland on the Monday, but as it is a long weekend and I'll be out all weekend. I think my wife might be a bit annoyed if I spend a Monday sitting recording with you. But then the week after we'll chat about all the local signings, and then really the week after that we're right into it. And when the season kicks off, we'll sort of bring you the big results from around the competitions, any upsets, and we'll sort of try and touch on every league at some point throughout the season. But mate, that's another week done. So we might see you next week, if not the week after.
No worries.